So yeah, the scientists discovered there's a particular antioxidant compound um, in the honey that made it unique to that particular type of honey, and that was the first type of honey that this particular molecule is identified in. They did give it to bees as well, and they found that the bees lived longer. Doesn't the kidney and the liver do the whole? So Hugan, there are antioxidants in our body, but the question is, can we supplement that to slow down the aging process? In a lot of other organisms, like fruit flies, C. elegans, so nematode worms, even mice, supplementation with antioxidants slowed down the aging process. Not always conclusively. Sometimes it was under very particular situations. My best friend's wife, who's also a researcher, she's a professor. They just moved. They were at Illinois. They were both at professors at Illinois State. She did an experiment where she was feeding fruit flies hydrogen peroxide, and that caused free radicals. So it caused increased cell damage in the body. She then had a group of individuals that were fed the hydrogen peroxide, but also an antioxidant mix, a pill mix called Superfruits. You can get it off Amazon. My dad went and got it off Amazon as soon as he read the results of the study. The study was published in Experimental Gerontology, so for old people, right? And she found that when feeding these antioxidants to the flies that were creating extra oxidants, it reversed the effects and it slowed down their aging, versus the flies that had the free radicals had accelerated aging compared to normal flies. But interestingly enough, there wasn't much benefit when feeding these superfruits to flies that weren't being fed hydrogen peroxide, which gets to the confusing part of it. Could I perhaps keep my normal diet but instead supplement my inertial reference frame to slow my aging from the perspective of other people on Earth? Open set, you don't have to worry about that. You're very, very young and talented individual. You don't need to worry about aging for many, many, many years. Probably another better part of 5 decades, I think, before you can say that maybe you should start thinking about it. Not yet. Not even close yet. Not even close yet. Especially not, we have a bunch of young people in this crowd here. Like our friend Yogurt Girl here. She just turned 22. She's a stunning supermodel, runs on the runways. She don't need it for decades and decades. Absolutely. One more thing about the Makita honey. Thanks, Mike. On the road to partner. Go give her that follow. I thought this video was interesting. We don't have to watch the whole part of it. But this guy kind of takes us on a walkthrough of where to get this honey in New Zealand. The only antioxidants I'm skeptical of are the ones that promote themselves as a miracle drug that cures a lot of things. Unfortunately, Hugan, that's all of them. That's how they're all marketed. At least the ones that I've seen. There are, I don't know, looking at the primary data and talking to knowing researchers who actually study this, it seems like there are beneficial effects in model organisms, meaning like fruit flies, C. elegans. There's frog, Xenopus work that suggests there's beneficial effects of it, but it seems in particular situations, and anything can become a toxin too. So there can be overdosing someone on antioxidants can be bad, and underdosing can be bad. So the dosage, as they mentioned in the video, could very well be an influencer here, affecting whether or not it works. Yes, Mike's and I were both going to say all of them. There's no cure-all in one. Oh, for sure, Hugan. For sure, but that's why when they say those comments, they say in the tiny text, not evaluated by the FDA. So you always have to be careful with them. And like they mentioned, Hugan, naturally in the body, we have antioxidants, a variety of them. Presumably, the best treatment would also be this combination therapy. Just like it's the best treatment against cancer is a combination therapy. So you want to look at those particular options as most likely the ways of doing things.
Journey. We are in the area north of Auckland, and we're staying in this epic little Airbnb kind of like farm stay vibe. We're going to be meeting up with some friends who run a really interesting business.
I just, this is a little bit different, but from delving into necessarily the science behind it, but I thought it was a really cool approach just to see how this honey was harvested, that we found it to be so interesting. So I'll put the paper up on the Discord that we were chatting about. Here is the image, the graphical summary that should pull it up for you guys. I'm actually looking at like what the composition of the honey and what like why it's so interesting. And again, this was the only honey that's ever been like had its whole like molecular profile looked at and got this particular molecule of an antioxidant. They did test the antioxidant on bees, and they like the bees lived longer that were eating this honey versus not this honey. So it seems like the bees were healthier, and they weren't in this paper trying to frame this as a miracle cure like Hugan was suggesting, but rather a possible something that we can use to keep the honeybee population healthier, because we know there's fungus and bacteria that are ravaging the honeybee populations across the world. But if there's some component of this honey that can keep them healthier, maybe we can incorporate that into the bees' diets, like as just a supplement, and to keep them on the healthier side. That was the argument being presented here, not as like the miracle cure. Yeah, for sure, Hugan. Although, Hugan, in cancer, there are free radicals that are produced inside the tumor. So an antioxidant would presumably benefit, but no, it's not going to make your tumor go away. But probably in some kind of component, there would be something helpful. Is there an FDA for bees? There are regulations on what you can feed your bees to actually call it honey, Smike. So there is a governing body. Hi, Ambrosine. Welcome in, friend. How are you doing today, Ambrosine? We're talking about honey and its beneficial effects, in particular this New Zealand kind of honey. Why is it so pricey? The FBA. Oh, my God. Yeah. Hugan, is it run by Barry B. Benson? His motto is be yourself. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I got a little carried away there. Hi, Ambrosine. Particular honey that they analyzed this molecular composition of and found this very high like component of antioxidant, and it seems to keep the bees healthier. And so that I just wanted to like rabbit hole a little bit into what it looked like how is actually collecting this honey, where does it look like, where they collect it, just because from like an interest perspective, like it's not like the most sciencey element to it, but I just thought it was kind of cool to learn about it. We don't have to finish the video. I just think it's neat, and so I thought, let's at least like look at it for a little bit before we get to our next science story.
They're beekeepers. They make manuka honey, and I'll be explaining a bit more about that later on in the video. And then in a couple of days, we will be reunited with our dog, Lanka, and explaining everything behind how we got him here and his whole journey. So it's going to be a fun video. I'm excited to take you along on the journey, and let's get into it.
Don't worry, we won't learn about Lanka, but I will post a video on the Discord if you guys want to hear about Lanka. Lanka the dog is fine, just so you guys know. She's still fine. Everything's fine.
What if I told you that 1 out of every 3 bites of food that you have is thanks to a bee? Would you believe me? Well, it's true. Bees are responsible for pollinating over 80% of the world's plants. In fact, 70 out of 100 of the top human crops are pollinated by bees, accounting for over 90% of the world's nutrition. But the sad news is that bee populations around the world are declining faster than ever. Scientists believe that those declines are caused by habitat loss, pesticide use.
Speaking of declining, Alex sent me this article this week that the monarch butterfly is now listed as endangered, which is really, really sad to hear. Another reason why we should have those little native plants planted in your area, so like milkweed and other plants to help like promote local pollinators and have little way stations for the monarch butterfly. Say that's a gross generalization of like your numbers. That's very fair, Master Smikes. It's very fair. Big Game, you're the first. I was telling people about the gifts command, and no one had used the gifts command. And Big Game used the gifts. Thank you, Big Gaming. I appreciate you.
Use and climate change. But the one place where honeybees are not in a steep decline is here in New Zealand. So
thank you, Big Gaming. Yeah, interestingly enough, apparently they're not in decline in New Zealand, so the researchers are actually making that connection in the paper, and maybe it's a function of the honey.